The airport lounge glowed with warm Christmas lights, but Evelyn Hale looked like she could freeze an entire city with a single glance. Her red hair was sleek and sharp. Her black coat was tailored to perfection. Her pale skin glowed under soft bulbs, and her dark sunglasses masked eyes that never missed a thing. Every inch of her radiated power, the kind that didn't need to be spoken to be felt. She stood beside the window, tapping one manicured finger against the glass as heavy snow slammed into the runway outside. "This is unacceptable," she muttered. Across from her, Noah Reyes pretended not to hear, mostly because he knew better. After 3 years as her personal assistant, he had mastered the art of listening without reacting, observing without getting burned. But Evelyn was in a mood today, a dangerous one. Noah closed her tablet and slipped it into his carry-all bag. "They're saying the storm's worsening. We should leave before the roads close." Her head turned sharply. Even through the sunglasses, he felt the weight of her stare. "Booked the car?" "Yes." "What kind?" He inhaled slowly. The best the rental service had available on short notice. She lowered her glasses, narrowing her eyes. "Define best." He hesitated, which was his mistake. "Noah." "A truck." Her eyes went flat. "A truck. It has four-wheel drive?" "Four-wheel drive isn't the problem," she said, stepping closer. Her perfume hit him, cool citrus and clean, infuriatingly unforgettable. "The problem is that I'm arriving at a major investment retreat in a vehicle that looks like I'm heading to a weekend camping trip." Noah bit back a smile. "I assure you, Evelyn, it's perfectly suitable," she snapped. "Appropriate? Professional?" He held her gaze. "Safe. It's the safest thing to get us through that." He nodded toward the wall of white roaring outside. Normally, Evelyn appreciated logic, but lately she'd been stretched thin. This deal had drained her patience, and unfortunately, Noah had absorbed most of the fallout. "We don't have time for this," she finally said. "Let's go." The truck looked exactly as he'd described. A red four-wheel drive beast, cheerful, sturdy, absolutely offensive to Evelyn Hale. She stopped dead in the snow. "No, absolutely not." "Evelyn, this is not the vehicle a CEO arrives in. Today you're driving in a blizzard," he reminded her gently, "not down a sunny boulevard." Her eyes flashed, a spark of fire beneath layers of frost. Something tightened in Noah's chest. People often asked why he stayed with Evelyn. They saw the icy exterior, the ruthless precision, the voice that could cut a grown man to ribbons. But he knew the truth. She was exacting, but fair. Demanding, but tireless. First in the office and the last to leave. He earned one of the highest PA salaries in Los Angeles, but it wasn't the money that kept him here. He genuinely liked Evelyn, maybe even loved her, not that he'd ever dare say that aloud. "Fine," she snapped. "Let's just go." She climbed in with the grace of a queen reluctantly boarding a peasant's wagon. Noah shut her door, circled the truck, and slid into the driver's seat. Snow hammered the windshield. "Seatbelt," he said. She shot him a glare potent enough to melt the snow, which for him only heated his blood further. When she finally clicked the belt, he let himself smile. He drove slowly and carefully, eyes sharp, shoulders tense with the effort of navigating the near whiteout conditions. "No visibility," he murmured. "We should pull over." "We're already behind schedule. Keep going." "Evelyn, it's not safe. I can't see anything." "Drive." He glanced at her. "I will not put both of us in danger. But if you just—" Before he could finish, the truck hit a patch of gray ice. The back wheels slid. The world tilted. Evelyn gasped, sharp and breathless. Snow exploded around them. The truck spun, skidded off the road, and dropped into a shallow ditch with a heavy, crunching thud. Silence. Noah switched on the overhead light and turned to her. "You okay?" he asked softly. She met him with a furious, icy glare. "Noah, this is entirely your fault." Her eyes burned into him, furious, but beneath the storm in them he saw it. Fear, vulnerability, something human she didn't let anyone else see. He knew better than to acknowledge it. "No," he said calmly, "the storm is no one's fault." He tried to start the engine. Nothing. She leaned closer, breath unsteady despite her attempt to appear composed. "Then why did you hire the one car in the entire state that can't survive a patch of snow?" His jaw clenched, his pulse hammered. He had never been this close to her when she was this furious. Her anger was intoxicating, sharp, bright, alive. "It was the only car available," he murmured, "and I booked it because you insisted we travel today, even though I suggested we stay in a hotel." Their eyes locked. Tension thickened. Heat flickered under the cold. "We need to walk," he said quietly. Her face dropped. "You're joking." "It's either that," he said, opening his door, "or we freeze in here." Outside, the snow fell hard. Evelyn Hale stared at the storm, then at him, then at the wrecked truck. For the first time in 3 years, something cracked in her ice. Not anger, not superiority. Fear. She swallowed. "Fine." She opened the door and stepped into the snow, which swallowed her boots nearly to the knee. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't complain. Evelyn Hale never complained. She simply endured. And that, more than the storm, more than the cold, more than the wreck, was the moment Noah realized this trip was going to change everything. Chapter 2. The cold was immediate. A brutal slap of winter air struck Evelyn the moment she stepped out of the truck. Snowflakes pelted her cheeks like frozen needles, and the wind clawed at her coat, trying to yank the warmth from her bones. The snow swallowed her boots almost to the knee. Of course this day would end like this. Behind her, Noah stepped out, pulling his hood up as he rounded the front of the vehicle. "Evelyn, are you—" She didn't let him finish. "I'm fine." Her voice was tight, clipped, dangerously close to cracking. She wasn't fine. She was freezing. She was furious. And beneath all that, she was shaken in a way Evelyn Hale refused to admit. Especially not to the man standing a few feet away, looking at her like she was something breakable. Noah checked the truck again, leaning into the open door to try the ignition one more time. Nothing. Not even a sputter. He shut the door gently, his breath fogging in the air. "We need to move. The longer we stay still, the colder we'll get." She exhaled sharply and looked toward the endless white stretching ahead. "And where exactly do you suggest we go, Noah? No roads, no visibility, and we're stranded in this." He didn't rise to the bite in her tone. He never did. Instead, he stepped closer so the wind hit him first, shielding her from its worst edge. "There's a town a couple of miles from here. We passed a sign about 20 minutes back. If we follow the road on foot, we should reach it before the storm gets worse." "Worse?" Her voice nearly broke into a laugh. "How exactly does it get worse than this?" As if on cue, the wind roared and shoved her sideways. She caught herself against the truck. Noah steadied her instantly, his hands wrapped around her elbows, warm, steady, strong. For one split second, Evelyn froze. Not from the cold, from him. The way his touch grounded her. The way her body responded, traitorous and immediate. The way her pulse jumped beneath his fingers. She jerked her arms back. "Don't—" He didn't apologize. His gaze softened instead, worry flickering through his dark eyes. "You're shivering," he said quietly. "I am fine." Another lie. He shrugged off his thickest scarf and held it out to her. She stared at it, then glared at him. "No." "Evelyn," I said no. "You're cold. I do not need your help." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so the storm swallowed everything except the warmth in his words. "You do. Just take it." Her jaw locked. Pride was ridiculous, but pride was all she had left when everything else felt dangerously out of control. She didn't take the scarf, so Noah draped it around her shoulders himself. Slow, careful, as though she were something precious. His fingers brushed the back of her neck, warm against freezing skin. She inhaled sharply. He froze at the sound, their breath mingling in the icy air. Something flickered between them, alive, hot, absolutely not allowed. Evelyn stepped away too quickly. "Let's go." He nodded and turned, taking the lead. She followed, boots crunching through the snow. They walked side by side, though Noah subtly angled himself to block the wind from her. Typical, infuriating, and kind. She hated that she noticed. Snow whipped across the road in thick sheets, erasing everything ahead of them. They trudged forward, heads bowed, steps heavy and uneven. "How far did you say this town was?" she called over the wind. 2 miles, maybe less." "You think? Or you know?" "I think," he admitted. She shot him a glare. "Wonderful. We're wandering blind through a blizzard based on your optimistic estimation. You have a better idea." "Yes, not crashing the truck." He stopped walking and turned toward her. For once, his voice wasn't soft or calm. "You ordered me to drive," he snapped. "You overrode my judgment, and we both know it." Her breath caught. He rarely challenged her. He never raised his voice. But here he was, cold, snow-dusted, breath-shaking, calling her out with a fire she didn't expect. Something traitorous inside her thrilled at it. She crossed her arms. "We don't have time for this argument." "Agreed," he said. "So walk." She sputtered, actually sputtered at the audacity. But she walked. And Noah walked beside her, silent but unyielding. 10 minutes later, she stepped onto an icy patch, and her foot slid. She stumbled forward, panic flashing across her face. Before she hit the ground, Noah grabbed her. One arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her upright with a force that knocked the breath out of her. Her hands braced against his chest. His body was a wall of heat, his breath warm against her cheek, their faces inches apart. Evelyn froze. He froze. Snow drifted softly around them, suspended in the moment as if even the storm was watching. Her heart pounded far too fast, far too hard. Noah's gaze dipped briefly to her mouth. Her lips parted. He swallowed. "Careful," he murmured, his voice low and rough. She stepped back sharply, cheeks burning beneath the cold. "Don't," she said, breath shaking. "Don't look at me like that." He blinked, confused. "Like what? Like you—" She cut herself off. "Just don't." He didn't argue. He never argued when she got like this. He just nodded once. "Let's keep moving." She hated how steady he sounded, and how unsteady he made her feel. They trudged on. The wind eased. Snowflakes still fell thickly, but the howl softened into something quieter, almost gentle. After what felt like hours, a tiny glow flickered ahead, dim, golden, blurred through the white. Evelyn squinted. "What is that?" Noah's pace quickened. Lights, could be the town. More lights appeared, warm and flickering despite the storm. Evelyn's breath hitched. Relief, exhaustion, and something she refused to name. As the shapes took form, she read the sign carved into the wooden post. "Welcome to Winter Haven. Population 932. She exhaled, a shuddering, unsteady release of tension. Noah glanced at her, snow melting on his eyelashes. "We made it." She didn't smile, but her eyes softened, barely, briefly, and Noah saw it. For a moment, the storm wasn't the only thing breaking around them. Chapter 3. By the time the town came into view, Noah's legs were numb, his fingers stiff, and his breath fogged in uneven bursts. Could tell she was cold and exhausted, and heartbreakingly human. A quiet swell of pride rose in his chest. His ice princess hadn't faltered. Her eyes traveled from the sign to the lights beyond it, the warm glow spilling from tiny buildings, lanterns twinkling like stars trapped in glass. He caught a flicker of relief on her face before she smoothed it away again. He expected that. Evelyn didn't crack often, and when she did, she recovered almost instantly. He pushed forward, clearing a path through the fresh blanket of snow. When her steps slowed, he adjusted his pace without a word. She would never thank him. He didn't need her to. The Evergreen Inn stood at the end of the street, built of warm timber with golden light glowing from its windows. Smoke curled from a chimney overhead. A wreath hung on the front door, green, gold, cheerful, and far too festive for Evelyn Hale. She stopped a few steps short, staring as if she had stepped into an alternate universe. He let her take it in. He wondered, not for the first time, what her expression would look like if she ever allowed herself to enjoy something this simple, this warm, this human. Snow fell gently around her. Her cheeks were flushed. Her lips parted on a small, unguarded exhale. Beautiful. He looked away quickly. "Let's get inside," he said, pulling the door open. Warmth rushed out, thick with the scent of cinnamon and pine. Evelyn stepped past him, her shoulders trembling as heat wrapped around her. He followed her in. Inside, Christmas surrounded them instantly. Noah didn't need to look at Evelyn to know she hated it. A towering Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with ribbons and golden lights. Wreaths and garlands covered every beam. It was the opposite of their sleek corporate office, where the only seasonal decoration was a solitary, minimalist Christmas tree. He'd delivered work to her home before. He knew she never decorated for Christmas. "Good heavens!" a woman exclaimed, round, rosy-cheeked, and dressed like a modern-day Mrs. Claus in red and white. She bustled toward them with towels in hand. "You two look like you were chewed up and spit out by the storm." Evelyn stiffened. Without thinking, Noah stepped in front of her slightly, absorbing the woman's attention. "We're fine," he said politely. "Just stranded." "Oh, honey, I can see that." She wrapped a towel around Evelyn's shoulders before Evelyn could refuse. Evelyn went rigid, as if being mothered were a personal insult. Then the woman turned to Noah. "And look at you," she said, brushing snow from his coat. "You poor thing." Evelyn's brows lifted in disbelief. Noah cleared his throat. "We just need 2 rooms." The woman moved behind the counter with a sympathetic smile. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. With the storm, we're full to the rafters. Only 1 room left." Noah felt Evelyn tense beside him like a stretched bowstring. "No," she said immediately. "Absolutely not." "It has a queen bed and a sofa," the innkeeper replied. "Very comfy." "No," Evelyn snapped, then softened her tone only slightly. "Is there another place in town? Anywhere?" "I'm afraid not. Winter Haven only has us, dear, and the next town is 40 miles away, with roads closed." Noah watched the fight drain from Evelyn's eyes. Defeat settled over her shoulders. Relief washed through him. He wouldn't have let her go back out into that storm. He would have physically stopped her if necessary. They needed warmth. They needed rest. "We'll take the room," he said. The innkeeper typed their names. Noah Reyes, Evelyn Hale, room 12, 2nd floor. Someone will bring warm towels and dry clothes. I'm Chris, owner here. Breakfast is included. The hallway was dim, lined with garlands and tiny white lights. Their wet boots squeaked softly with each step. Evelyn walked quickly. Noah followed. Her damp curls had escaped the tight knot she always wore. Her porcelain skin was flushed from the cold, and without makeup, he could see a faint dusting of freckles across her nose. He found the imperfection impossibly endearing. Warm light filled the small cabin-like room. A large bed dominated the space, with a smaller sofa near the fire. Garlands decorated the mantel. Evelyn stopped cold in the doorway. Noah swallowed. This was going to be a problem. "I'll sleep on the sofa," he said quietly. She glanced at it and shook her head. "No." He sighed, defeated. "Evelyn, I'm trying to make the best of this, but you're not helping." She turned to him, exhausted but honest. "You're too tall for the sofa. We can both sleep on the bed. It's big enough." She walked inside, snow melting onto the floor. For the first time that night, she looked small, tired, human. He watched her, chest tightening. With her back turned, she said softly, "Noah." "Yes?" "Thank you." The words were quiet, reluctant, real. Warmth spread in his chest. He didn't let her see his smile. "Anytime, Evelyn." And he meant it. A knock came. A young man delivered towels and warm clothes. Noah tipped him and shut the door. The room suddenly felt small, confined, dangerously intimate. Evelyn slipped into the bathroom. Noah stared at the bed. Sharing it with Evelyn Hale would require every ounce of restraint he possessed. But she was right. The sofa was far too small. Chapter 4. The moment the bathroom door shut behind her, Evelyn released the breath she'd been holding since they arrived. Her hands were trembling. Ridiculous. She stared at them in disbelief before curling them into fists until her knuckles whitened. Trembling was weakness. Trembling meant nerves, fear, loss of control. And Evelyn Hale did not lose control. Not in meetings, not in crises, and certainly not because she had to share a room, a bed, with Noah Reyes. She turned the shower handle harder than necessary. Hot water thundered down, steam flooding the small room. She stepped beneath it and nearly groaned as warmth seeped into her frozen muscles. She braced her palms against the cold tile, squeezing her eyes shut. Her mind refused to quiet. She was excited and nervous in equal measure, an infuriating combination. Sharing a bed with Noah brought a flutter of heat low in her stomach she had no right to feel. She was attracted to him, painfully so. Noah Reyes was an attractive man, that dark hair, always perfectly tousled, that body in a suit, literal soft porn, that face straight out of an expensive cologne campaign. And he was her employee, completely unprofessional, completely off limits, completely frustrating. She sometimes snapped at him just to release the pressure of wanting him. Wanting him was a problem she would not act on. Dating him would be a PR nightmare. Firing him because she had the hots for him would be a lawsuit waiting to happen. Besides, he was a damn good PA. As the water beat down on her back, a completely inappropriate image flashed across her mind. Noah stepping into the shower behind her, warm hands sliding across her waist. Evelyn's breath hitched. Stop it. Stop it right now, Evelyn. This was already bad enough. Sharing a bed with a man she tried very hard not to fantasize about? Unthinkable. The sofa was too small, though, and she wasn't heartless. She wouldn't make him sleep folded in half like a pretzel just to preserve her sanity. She would simply have to wear her big girl pants and survive the night. She shut the water off abruptly, as if the spray itself had encouraged thoughts she couldn't afford. She wrapped herself in the towel Chris had sent up and wiped the steam from the mirror. Her cheeks were pink from heat, her hair curling at the ends, freckles visible across her nose. She didn't look like Evelyn Hale, CEO. She looked like Evelyn, just Evelyn. It unnerved her. She opened the bathroom door and nearly walked straight into him. Noah looked up, towel slung over his shoulder, hair damp from melted snow. He looked like a sin, a walking, breathing sin. His eyes flicked, quickly, involuntarily, over her towel-wrapped form before snapping back to her face. Heat shot through her stomach. He cleared his throat. I'll shower now. Fine, she managed, though her voice wobbled. He moved past her, the warmth of his body brushing her arm. Her breath hitched. The door closed behind him, and Evelyn pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady her heartbeat. This was not good. This was going to be a very long night. She dressed quickly in the thick flannel sleep set Chris provided. It was soft, too warm, too comfortable. She hated how much she liked it. And when Noah emerged from the bathroom in gray joggers and a fitted t-shirt, she hated that even more. His hair was damp, falling over his forehead. Water glistened at his collarbone. He looked relaxed, casual, and entirely too tempting. He noticed her looking. She pretended she wasn't. Two adults, two professionals, two people who absolutely did not have inappropriate feelings for one another. Well, at least one of them didn't. Noah began arranging the pillows to create a clear divide between their halves of the bed. Thoughtful, considerate, infuriating. She hated that pillow wall. Quiet falling apart. Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed, back straight, hands folded neatly in her lap. She could feel exhaustion pulling at her bones. She watched Noah as he moved around the room, adjusting the fire, dimming the lights, quietly taking care of everything without being asked. Of course he did. He switched off the harsh overhead light, leaving only the glow of the fire and a single bedside lamp. The room slipped into something warm and dim, something intimate, too intimate. Noah climbed into the bed on his side, careful to stay on his half. He lay on his back, hands resting over his stomach, gaze fixed on the ceiling. Evelyn lay down too, far from him, as close to the edge as she could get. She could feel the heat of him through the mattress. Her heart pounded. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. "Good night, Evelyn," he murmured. She swallowed. "Good night, Noah." Silence filled the room, but not a peaceful one. It was charged, alive. A taut wire stretched between them, humming with things unsaid, and things both of them were dangerously close to admitting. Evelyn closed her eyes. Sleep did not come. Not with Noah Reyes lying inches away. Not with her body betraying her. Not with her heart doing something it absolutely shouldn't. Not tonight. Chapter 5. Noah woke to warmth. For a moment, still half in a dream, he didn't understand why. Then he turned his head. Evelyn was inches away. Her red hair spilled across the pillow in soft, damp waves. Freckles dusted her cheeks. Her lips were parted slightly, breath slow and steady. She looked peaceful in a way he had never seen at the office. Beautiful, he thought before he could stop himself. Then, she shifted closer in her sleep, unconsciously seeking warmth, her knee brushing his thigh. Noah nearly stopped breathing. He lay rigid on his back, staring at the ceiling, fighting every human instinct he had. This was fine. Normal. 2 coworkers sharing a bed because of a snowstorm. Except her scent filled his lungs. Her warmth seeped through his skin. Her body was dangerously, unfairly close. And Noah Reyes was only human. He slid carefully out of bed, slow, silent, before he did something very stupid, like wake her with whisper-soft kisses along her shoulder. By the time Evelyn woke, he'd managed to make weak coffee using the inn's ancient kettle. She pushed herself upright slowly, blinking as if surfacing from a deep sleep. Not Evelyn Hale, CEO, but Evelyn. Soft around the edges, hair messy, eyes sleepy and unfocused. Noah's heart stuttered. "Morning," he said gently. Her eyes sharpened instantly. Back to the Ice Queen. "Did you sleep?" she asked. He didn't tell her he spent half the night staring at the ceiling, hyper-aware of her every shift, every breath. "Some?" he lied. She smoothed her hair and pretended not to notice the pillow barrier between them had completely collapsed. "Let's get breakfast before we head out," he suggested. She frowned. "I thought we were staying until the road's clear." "We are, but Chris mentioned breakfast, and I thought we could check out the little town after." She blinked at him, then squinted. "What in the world are you wearing?" Noah grinned. "A Christmas jumper. Wait till you see yours." "I am not wearing a Christmas jumper," she snapped. "Well, it's either that or the cozy sleep set you're already in. Our clothes went out to be laundered." Evelyn launched herself out of the bed with indignation and stomped toward the bathroom. "You look ridiculous," she shouted over her shoulder. Noah caught the smile she tried and failed to hide. After a hearty breakfast made by the ever-cheerful Chris, they bundled up and wandered through the village. The square was decorated lavishly, with garlands wrapped around lampposts and a massive Christmas tree glittering in the center. A sign beside it read, "Tree lighting ceremony, all welcome." Evelyn pretended not to read it. Noah pretended not to notice her reading it. They followed the smell of cinnamon and fresh bread to a charming little bakery, a gingerbread cottage come to life. Wooden beams, fogged windows, the scent of butter and sugar and warm spice. Evelyn paused at the doorway, visibly assaulted by the coziness. "This is a lot," she muttered. Noah bit back a smile. The woman behind the counter spotted them instantly. "Oh, the stranded couple?" Evelyn snapped upright. "We're not—" "Yes," Noah said instinctively. Evelyn's head whipped toward him, eyes flaring. He cleared his throat. "It's easier than explaining." She looked ready to beat him with a baguette, but she stayed quiet. "Are you here for the cookie decorating contest?" the woman asked. Before Evelyn could decline, Noah said, "That would be great." "Excellent. Couples entries are always the best." Evelyn's expression could have soured milk. "Just go with it," Noah whispered. "I am not—" But they were already being ushered to chairs. They sat side by side at a little wooden table. Too close. Far too close. He could feel her warmth through their sleeves. Noah tried to focus on the gingerbread man in front of him. Evelyn tried to pretend none of this bothered her. It absolutely did. She reached for an icing bottle at the exact moment he did. Their fingers brushed. A spark, clean, hot, electric, shot straight through him. Evelyn froze. Noah swallowed hard. "You can have it," he murmured. "Thanks," she said, though her voice was faint. He watched her choose a Christmas tree-shaped cookie. She squeezed the icing bottle. Too hard. It exploded. Green icing splattered across Noah's chest and down the front of his very colorful Christmas jumper. Children at the next table giggled. Evelyn's face drained, then flushed, horror, panic, mortification all crashing together. Noah looked down at the dripping mess, then at her, and he couldn't help it. He smiled. Guess we're even, he murmured. Her blush deepened. At least it improved the look of that jumper, she shot back. His fiery princess. She grabbed a napkin and stepped closer, too close, reaching for his chest to wipe the icing. When her fingers brushed him, Noah inhaled sharply. She froze. Their eyes locked. Her hand lingered over his sternum. He felt her fingertips tremble through the fabric. Evelyn, he whispered. He caught her hand gently, then instantly released it when heat spiked through him at the touch. He snatched the napkin, rubbing the icing off himself, eyes fixed firmly on anything that wasn't Evelyn Hale. The rest of the decorating contest was a complete blur. He couldn't focus on the cookies, or the judges, or the laughing children. He could only feel her beside him, her thigh brushing his, their elbows knocking, her soft breaths every time she leaned closer. It was becoming unbearable, absolutely, beautifully, unbearably impossible. Chapter 6. Evelyn barely spoke the entire walk back from the bakery. Not because she was angry. No, that would have been easier. She was unsettled, unsteady, off balance in a way she couldn't explain, even to herself. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Noah's face when the icing exploded. The startled laugh, the warmth in his eyes, the way he looked at her like she was someone he wanted to touch. Worse, she saw her own hand on his chest. She had felt his heartbeat. He had felt her tremble. And that moment had rattled her more than the car crash. She hated it. She hated that she could still feel the shape of him in her palm. The inn was dim when they arrived, oddly quiet. Evelyn brushed past the garlands and over-the-top Christmas cheer with the same expression one might reserve for walking into a clown-infested circus. Noah shook snow from his hair, droplets scattering across the floor. She forced herself not to watch. As they climbed the stairs to their room, her chest tightened with every step. Sharing a bed last night had been accidental. Sharing a bed tonight felt like a choice. And she wasn't entirely sure she trusted herself with that choice. They reached the door. Evelyn stepped inside first. Then, the lights flickered once, twice, and vanished. The room plunged into darkness. She froze. A small gasp escaped before she could stop it. Noah's voice came immediately, low and steady in the dark. Evelyn, are you okay? She hated how much comfort that gave her. She hated that her pulse slowed simply because he was close. I'm fine, she snapped, instinctively defensive. A beat. Then his voice again, soft, amused, certain. You're not fine. Heat crawled up her neck. Don't tell me what I am. He didn't argue. Instead, she heard him move, unlocking his phone and turning on the torch. They had no service in Winter Haven, but the light worked fine. The glow illuminated Noah as he walked toward the fireplace, assured, calm, collected. He found the matches on the mantel. A tiny flame sparked to life, illuminating his face in a brief halo of warm gold. Her breath caught. Shadows sculpted the angles of his jaw. His lashes looked impossibly long. His mouth... She looked away sharply. He lit the fireplace with practiced care, coaxing the flame until it bloomed into a soft, glowing fire. Then he lit 2 candles on the little table, filling the room with warm, flickering light. Heat filled her chest, and it had nothing to do with the fire. The firelight. Noah picked up one of the candles and left the room to check what was happening. Evelyn used the moment to steady her breathing. She removed her coat, hung it over the door, and sank onto the rug in front of the fireplace, letting the heat seep into her cold skin. Noah returned a minute later. No electricity, he said, sitting right beside her. She stayed still. Scuttling away would look ridiculous. Power's out across town. They're working on it. Evelyn crossed her arms. Wonderful. You don't have to be afraid, he said gently. Her head snapped toward him. I'm not afraid. He raised a brow, that infuriatingly knowing brow. She inhaled sharply. Fine, I don't like the dark. Better. She glared. He smiled. The fire crackled softly. Light flickered over her skin, warming places she didn't know had been cold. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Noah draped a blanket over her shoulders. Slow, gentle, careful, as though she were made of glass. Evelyn's throat tightened unexpectedly. Thank you, she murmured, keeping her eyes on the fire. He didn't comment, just stayed beside her, close enough their shoulders nearly brushed. Their proximity felt like a question her body already knew the answer to. The silence stretched. Warm, intimate, dangerous. She glanced sideways. Noah watched the fire, his features soft with thought. The glow lit his skin and hair in gold. He looked beautiful. She had always known he was handsome. She wasn't blind. But this wasn't about looks. It was the softness, the steadiness, the way he made her feel seen without ever pushing. And it terrified her. The moment she couldn't ignore. Today was nice, he said quietly. Nice? She derided. He smiled, faint but knowing. Admit it, Christmas is getting to you. He still watched the fire, but she felt the words inside her chest before they reached her ears. No, it's not, she said too quickly. And you almost smiled. I did not. You did. Her cheeks warmed. Tell me, Evelyn, he said softly. What's up with you and Christmas? I don't know what you're talking about, she said stiffly. Noah didn't move. He simply waited, gaze steady. And when she couldn't stand it any longer, she sighed and spoke softly. I loved Christmas when I was a little girl. Noah's expression softened instantly, silently encouraging her to continue. My mom always made it special, she said. When I turned 14, I decided all the Christmas stuff was childish. She wanted us to bake cookies together. I wanted to go out with my friends. She said I was too young. I stomped upstairs, slammed the door, blasted my music. Her voice wavered. After an hour, I went to help her. The decorations looked amazing. She'd done it all while I sulked like an idiot. But when I reached the kitchen, her throat closed. I froze. She was on the floor, not moving, a tray of cookies beside her. Noah's breath caught. The radio was still playing Christmas music. The lights were twinkling. Even the stupid Santa figurine was laughing when the paramedics rang the bell. Her voice broke. Dad came home and I'd never seen him cry before that day. Tears rolled down her cheeks, heavy, unstoppable. By February, I realized I hadn't lost one parent that day, she whispered. I'd lost both. Dad wasn't himself anymore. I took down all the decorations and threw them away. She swallowed hard. He died the next Christmas, drank himself to sleep in his chair. That's how I found him. Noah didn't speak. He simply gathered her into his arms, holding her tightly as she sobbed into his shoulder. His hand moved slowly across her back, his voice a soft murmur of comfort. She clung to him, crying harder than she had in years. When she finally calmed, he pulled back just enough to see her face, eyes filled with sorrow. I'm so sorry you went through that, he said quietly. I shouldn't have pried. She nodded. He shouldn't have. But she felt lighter than she had in years. Maybe ever. It's okay, she whispered, turning toward him. Noah cupped her face gently and gave her the softest, chaste kiss on the lips. It was barely a brush, tender, careful, reverent. Noah, she breathed. She wanted more. She wanted him. She leaned in to take what she wanted, and the room blazed to life. Electricity surged back through the inn in a harsh, blinding flash. Evelyn jerked backward. Noah froze. They stared at each other, breathless. Then Noah stood too quickly. I think I'll go for a walk, he said, voice tight. Before she could stop him, he left the room, closing the door softly behind him. Leaving Evelyn on the rug, heart still racing, lips still tingling, wishing the lights had stayed off just a little longer. Chapter 7. Noah didn't go far. In his rush to leave the room, he had forgotten his coat. And even if he'd remembered it, the weather was too brutal for him to step outside. So he headed to the inn's bar instead and ordered a double whiskey. Neat. For a long moment, he just stared at the amber liquid without seeing it. Guilt twisted in his chest. He felt like a louse for walking out after Evelyn had bared her soul like that. But he also knew he'd had no choice. The chaste kiss, soft, trembling, unbearably sweet, had cracked open a dam he'd held back for years. The feel of her lips against his had unleashed every restrained emotion, every secret longing, every fantasy he'd spent 3 years forcing into silence. And the heat in her eyes? He had never seen her look at him like that. Not once. Not ever. It terrified him, because he knew exactly where that moment would have led if he'd stayed. And it would have been wrong, taking advantage of her when she was vulnerable, grieving, emotionally raw. So he'd left, like a gentleman. Damn it. He downed the whiskey in a single swallow and welcomed the burn as it seared his throat and curled warm in his stomach. Then he went back upstairs. Evelyn was already in bed, curled on her side, blankets pulled up to her chin, breathing soft and even. He felt a rush of disappointment and relief. Sleep came slowly, tugging him under only after exhaustion finally won. Noah woke to bright light flooding the room. Evelyn stood at the window, opening the curtains. She was already dressed in a Christmas jumper and jeans, and somehow the sight made his heart skip. "Morning," he said softly. She startled, her head snapping toward him. Then her face shut down. The shutters came down over her eyes. His ice princess returned. Noah forced a smile and headed for the shower. The whole time, regret gnawed at him. He'd left her alone to rebuild every wall he'd wanted so desperately to tear down. But he told himself again, he was a gentleman. He'd done the right thing. Freshly showered, he found a small note on the table. Gone for breakfast. E. He dressed quickly and strode to the dining room. Evelyn sat at the table farthest from the door, a book in hand. She looked softer today. Her porcelain skin warmed with a touch of color. Her posture relaxed in a way he rarely saw. His chest lightened as he crossed the room. She glanced up from her book, one brow lifting. She might have looked cool, but he'd caught the flicker in her eyes when she first noticed him. He ordered breakfast and it arrived immediately. "Want some?" he teased when he caught her eyeing his plate. She shook her head. "Already ate." "What did you have?" "Fruit salad." He held out a piece of bacon. "How about this?" "No." "I don't want that." He took a bite, exaggerating the satisfied groan. She glared, exasperated. "Fine," she muttered, snatching the bacon. "Happy now?" He barely hid his smile as she proceeded to eat almost half of his breakfast. When she finally leaned back, she offered a sheepish smile. "Guess I was hungrier than I thought." He looked at her with more affection than was wise. "Guess so." "The weather's better," he said, "but the roads are still impassable. What do you want to do today?" She hesitated. Then, casually, too casually, she said, "Maybe attend the Christmas tree lighting ceremony." Noah blinked. Of all the answers he expected, that wasn't one of them. Just when he thought he understood Evelyn Hale, she did something that broke every pattern, and he loved it. Winter Haven glowed that evening. Lanterns strung across the streets, carols drifting on the cold air, fresh snow crunching beneath their boots. The whole town looked enchanted. Evelyn walked beside him, hands buried in the pockets of a borrowed coat, her expression carefully neutral. But he saw the curiosity in her eyes as people greeted them warmly. She didn't correct anyone who assumed they were a couple. He noticed. He noticed everything. They stepped into the town square, where the giant Christmas tree towered over the crowd. Children danced around its base, squealing with joy. Evelyn walked a few steps ahead. The lights washed over her, turning her hair molten copper. Her cheeks glowed pink from the cold. Her eyes reflected the lanterns overhead. Noah stopped walking. Completely, because she looked magical. Not the CEO, not the Ice Queen, just Evelyn. His chest tightened painfully. She turned and caught him staring. Something flickered in her eyes, raw, fragile, before she smothered it. "What?" she asked too sharply. He shook his head. "Nothing." Everything. They barely stood there 5 minutes before a tall, bearded local man strolled over, annoyingly friendly. "Evenin'," he said, giving Evelyn a slow smile. "I'm Mark." He held out his hand. Noah's jaw tightened. Evelyn shook Mark's hand politely. He held it a fraction too long. Something dark twisted low in Noah's gut. Jealousy. Evelyn stepped back. Mark followed. "You here for the ceremony? I can get you closer to the front. Best view in the square." Noah spoke before reason could stop him. "We're good. Thanks." Mark blinked. Sure thing." He walked off. Evelyn turned on Noah instantly. "What was that?" He was Noah paused, searching for a term that didn't sound like a caveman guarding territory. Hovering. I wasn't aware I needed your protection, she snapped. You don't, he said softly. I just. He clenched his jaw, looked away. Evelyn's anger faded into something else, something searching. She stepped closer, her voice lower. Noah, why did that bother you? He swallowed hard. Because I want you. Because watching another man touch you feels like losing oxygen. Because I don't know how to stop wanting you. But he said none of it. Doesn't matter, he murmured. It does, she insisted. He finally met her eyes. And she froze. Whatever she saw there, want, longing, desperation, all of it, stole her breath. She looked away first. The mayor stepped up, the lanterns dimming as the crowd quieted. Silver moonlight washed over the square. Evelyn shivered. Noah stepped closer without thinking, brushing a gloved hand lightly against her back. She didn't move away, not even an inch. Her breath trembled. So did his. They turned toward each other at the exact same moment. Their faces inched closer, drawn by something they could no longer pretend wasn't there. He felt her breath on his lips. This time she didn't pull away. This time. The crowd erupted as the tree lit up. Evelyn flinched back. Noah closed his eyes. Twice now. Twice the universe had stepped in between them. He wasn't sure how many almost moments he could survive. After the ceremony, everyone was invited into the town hall for a hot drink and mince pies. Evelyn and Noah went in for some mulled wine. When they stepped out of the town hall, snow was falling again, thick, fast, relentless. The cheerful glow of the festival lights made it look magical. But Evelyn felt the shift in the air. The wind had changed direction. The temperature had dropped. The storm had circled back. A second wave. Noah noticed it too. His hand hovered near her back, guiding without touching. We should head in, he murmured. She nodded, trying to ignore the way her pulse fluttered at the quiet protectiveness in his tone. They walked back in silence, boots crunching through fresh drifts. The inn's windows glowed warm and golden through the swirling snow. The moment they stepped inside, the blizzard slammed down in full force, howling against the walls. They were snowed in again. Of course they were. Evelyn stood in the cabin-like room, heart hammering far too fast. Her coat felt heavy. Her breath felt unsteady. The fire crackled softly as Noah lit it. Neither of them mentioned what almost happened under the Christmas lights. Neither of them had to. It hung between them, thick, electric, impossible to ignore. No more power outages tonight, Noah said, checking the lamp. She nodded, though she barely heard him. The silence stretched, warm and dangerous. She removed her coat slowly. He watched her. Noah, she whispered, and that one word, her voice in that soft, trembling register she almost never used, undid something inside him. He crossed the room in 2 strides. She reached for him, fingers curling into the front of his shirt, pulling him toward her in a movement so sure, so desperate it left him breathless. Their mouths met with weeks, years of tension behind it. Heat burst through her chest. His hands framed her waist, drawing her in as though he'd been starving for her. She pressed herself against him. No hesitation, no fear, no rules. And Noah kissed her like he'd been trying not to for far too long. Her mind went blank. Her body didn't. Evelyn, he murmured against her mouth, voice low, ragged. Tell me this isn't a mistake. It's not, she whispered. And for that moment, she meant it. Every layer she'd built, CEO, Ice Queen, untouchable, melted under his hands. They stumbled toward the bed, lips still locked, breath tangled. His jacket hit the floor, her fingers threaded into his hair. He lifted her effortlessly, laying her on the mattress, his breath hot against her neck. Everything felt inevitable. Everything felt right. Everything felt. She stopped thinking. For the first time since she could remember, Evelyn Hale let go. And Noah caught her. When Evelyn woke, she felt a heavy hand on her waist and a warm body behind her. For one suspended, glowing second, she let herself smile into the pillow. Noah, his arm around her, his breath warm against her neck, her dream bleeding perfectly into reality. She'd imagined this moment for years, ever since Noah Reyes had walked into her office and introduced himself as her new PA. Then, her phone vibrated. Hard. A second later, Noah's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Then her tablet, then his watch, then her second phone. Every device they owned lit up simultaneously. They shot upright. Notifications flooded every screen. Pings, vibrations, alerts piling over one another like a digital avalanche. Dozens. Hundreds. Email previews scrolled in a frantic blur. Her stomach plummeted. She snatched her phone first. One subject line froze her blood. Urgent. Hale Corp Europe deal falling apart. Legal issue with Zurich office. Requires immediate CEO review press inquiry regarding CEO absence during crisis. Board wants emergency call ASAP. The world tilted. She felt Noah shift beside her, sitting up slowly, concern radiating off him like heat. Evelyn. No. Her voice tore out sharper than she intended. No, no, no. She stumbled out of bed, grabbing her clothes with frantic movements. Evelyn, talk to me. Don't, she snapped, yanking her coat from the chair. Just don't. Noah stood, confusion pulling his brows tight. What's happening? Everything, she hissed, pacing as she scrolled through more disaster updates. Everything is happening, Noah. Everything is falling apart and I... She broke off, breath shuddering. He stepped toward her. Let me help. I can't. Her voice flattened into steel. I can't do this right now. He froze. She heard herself say it before her mind caught up. This was a mistake. The words were a blade. Noah inhaled sharply as if she'd physically hit him. A mistake? He repeated, voice low, stunned. Her pulse hammered wildly, panic roared louder than reason. This deal wasn't just important, it was defining. Losing it could fracture the company's valuation, damage investor trust, destabilize the board. And the press knowing she'd been unreachable last night? Unthinkable, unforgivable. I shouldn't have done that, she said stiffly, avoiding his eyes. I shouldn't have crossed that line. I should have been dealing with this crisis instead of being with me, he finished quietly. Exactly. The silence that followed was brutal, cold, hollow, deadening. Noah's shoulders squared slowly like he was bracing against a blow. If that's what you really think, he said, voice controlled but trembling underneath, then I'll give you space. Space. Space was the last thing she wanted. Distance was the last thing she needed. But fear, her lifelong companion, dragged every defensive instinct to the surface. Please do, she forced out. His expression didn't crumble, didn't break. It shuddered, like a door slamming shut forever. Understood, he said quietly. He stepped back, one step, then another, until there was an entire world between them. And for Evelyn Hale, who'd built her entire life on walls and distance, it should have felt safe. Instead, it felt like stepping into the coldest winter she had ever known. Chapter 9. They arrived in L.A. by 9 a.m. the next day. From the moment she stepped into the building, Evelyn was thrust into crisis mode. The Zurich disaster consumed every second of her attention. She didn't have the luxury of thinking about Noah. She told herself she didn't anyway. But her body betrayed her. Every time he walked into the boardroom, she felt it. A shift in the air. A pull she couldn't ignore. And every time he stepped out, an ache followed, sharp and hollow. The meetings dragged through the morning and into the afternoon. By early evening, the fires were finally controlled, the board appeased, the press neutralized, the deal salvaged, and Evelyn realized something else, something she'd been refusing to admit. The company was too dependent on her, too fragile without her. She needed a COO immediately, someone she trusted, someone capable, because if everything burned down simply because she was unavailable for one night, that wasn't leadership. That was a vulnerability she could no longer afford. By 8 p.m., the building had emptied out, but Evelyn hadn't gone home. Not yet. She needed to find Noah. Her feet carried her down the familiar hallway before her mind caught up. She reached his office, the door half open, the lights still on. He was there. He stood when she entered, formal, distant, untouchable. Evelyn, he said quietly. Her throat tightened. Then she noticed the envelope on his empty desk. "What is that?" she asked, though some part of her already knew. Noah didn't flinch. "My resignation." Her pulse stopped. Air caught like glass in her throat. He slid the envelope toward her. She didn't touch it. "You're quitting?" she whispered. "Yes." "Why?" The word cracked out of her. Too sharp, too desperate, too raw. He hesitated only for a heartbeat. "Because it's becoming impossible," he said softly. "For me. To stay and pretend nothing happened. To pretend I don't—" He cut himself off. Looked away. The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn forced herself to speak, voice barely steady. "You're one of the best PAs I've ever had." A sad, knowing smile touched his lips. "And that's the problem." Her heart thudded painfully, a hollow drumbeat in her chest. "I'll work until Christmas Eve," he continued. "I'll contact HR first thing in the morning to hire a replacement, and I'll train them before I leave. Everything will be handled." He stepped around her, respectfully, carefully, but with a distance that sliced straight through her. Noah walked past her, out of his office, down the hall, leaving her standing there with a hollow ache in her chest she didn't want to examine. Couldn't examine. Evelyn Hale had survived hostile takeovers, failing markets, ruthless negotiations. But nothing had ever hit her like this. Noah choosing to walk away. From her. From them. From whatever almost was. And she didn't know how to stop him, or if she even could. Chapter 10. The 2 weeks passed quickly. Evelyn should have felt triumphant. The Zurich deal was saved. The legal crisis neutralized. The board stabilized. Everything was back under her tight, perfected control. Everything except the one thing she truly wanted. Noah. It was his last day. They were in the New York office, and for the first time in years, they weren't flying back to LA together. She was returning alone. Noah wasn't coming back at all. December 24th, his final hours in her world. And despite every meeting, every distraction, every professional armor she tried to rebuild, she felt him in the building like gravity. Everyone stopped by his desk, the one just outside her office. The interns who adored him, the executives who relied on him, even the security guards who teased him every morning. Everyone got a final smile, a handshake, a hug, a goodbye. Everyone except her. Not because she lacked opportunity, but because Noah never looked her way, never lingered, never gave her a single moment alone. The clock inched toward 5. Her heart inched toward panic. Her phone buzzed. Weather alerts filled her screen in harsh red banners. Severe blizzard. All roads closing. Public transport suspended. Travel not advised. Her breath caught. She had been so consumed by work she hadn't even noticed the darkness outside, the wind howling, snow piling against the windows. She turned toward Noah's desk. Empty. But she knew he was still in the building. She didn't grab her coat. She didn't think. She ran. He had just reached the lobby when his phone buzzed. Another blizzard alert. He stared at the glass doors. Snow slammed against them like fists. The wind roared through the street, swallowing everything in white. Perfect. Of course, the universe wouldn't let him slip away cleanly. He tightened his grip on the cardboard box of his belongings and debated his next move. He could try for the rental car. Maybe reach his hotel. He didn't want to go back upstairs. He didn't want to see Evelyn again. Didn't want to hear anything that would make leaving harder. But then, Noah! Her voice cracked across the lobby like lightning. He turned. She was breathless, flushed, eyes bright with something between fear and desperation. She looked like she had sprinted through the entire building just to get to him. "Evelyn," he breathed. Instinctively, he stepped back. Distance, always distance now. "You can't leave," she said. He exhaled. "I wasn't planning to. The roads—" "No." She shook her head urgently. "No, Noah. You can't leave the company. Not tonight. Not like this." His chest tightened painfully. "Evelyn," he said quietly, "I think it's best if—" "No." Her voice cracked. That single fracture undid him. She didn't know how to do this. Didn't know how to stand upright while her chest splintered open. "You're just going to disappear?" she demanded, voice trembling. "Just walk away without even talking to me?" "You told me to," he said softly, hurt flickering behind his eyes. You made it pretty clear what I meant to you. That's not... She stepped closer, breath shaking. I wasn't thinking. I was scared. Everything was falling apart at once, and You chose work. The words landed like blows. You always choose work. That isn't fair. It's true. He wasn't angry. It was worse. He was resigned. Like he'd stopped fighting for something he once wanted desperately. Her throat closed. Noah, I made a mistake. He went still. Absolutely still. Her heartbeat thundered beneath her ribs. I shouldn't have said what I did, she whispered. I shouldn't have pushed you away, or acted like it didn't mean anything. His expression flickered. What did it mean? He asked softly. She opened her mouth. But the old fear of losing control, of losing him, clamped tight around her. She couldn't speak. Noah saw it. Something inside him broke. He waited. For truth, for vulnerability, for anything real. But Evelyn Hale, the billionaire CEO, couldn't say two simple words. I care. His heart cracked cleanly down the center. He stepped back. Okay, he said quietly. That's my answer. She reached for him. Noah. But he shook his head. You don't have to explain, he murmured. I get it. You can't do this. He gestured between them. And that's fine. But I can't stay here. Her eyes widened. You're still leaving? Yes. He swallowed. I can't stay when I'm in love with you. I need to leave so I can get over you. She flinched as if struck. He turned, lifted the box, and pushed through the lobby doors, into the blizzard. Evelyn stood staring at the doors. Love. He said love. The word detonated inside her, collapsing her walls in an instant. She ran, with no coat, no plan, no thought except get him back. She burst through the doors, and the storm swallowed her whole. Snow slashed across her skin. Wind shoved her sideways. Cold tore into her thin shirt like claws. But she saw him. Noah halfway down the steps, fighting against the gale. Noah Reyes, she screamed, voice ripping out of her like lightning. Don't you dare walk out on me. He stopped. Slowly, so slowly he turned. Snow clung to him in thick flakes. His lashes were white, his jaw tight. He looked heartbroken. And she was shaking violently. Her hair whipped around her face. Her clothes were already stiffening with ice. Evelyn, he shouted, you don't have a coat. Go inside. No, she cried, stumbling toward him. Not until you listen. I've listened, he yelled back. You don't want me. You don't want this. That's not true. He froze. She stepped closer, breath trembling visibly in the cold. Noah, she said, voice breaking, I am in love with you. Everything went silent, even the storm. She swallowed hard. I've been in love with you for months, maybe years. I was scared of being vulnerable, of losing control. I told myself I couldn't lose you as a PA, but that was a lie. I can't lose you. Period. Nothing scares me more than losing you. His box dropped into the snow. Evelyn, he whispered. I'm sorry, she cried. I pushed you away because I wanted you too much. You mattered too much. I thought it was wrong, unprofessional, dangerous. No, he shouted, stepping forward. This is dangerous. You're going to freeze out here. I don't care, she yelled back. I care about you. Snow pelted them. Wind roared between them. Her tears froze instantly on her cheeks. Noah dragged a hand through his wet hair, torn apart. Then he muttered, raw and helpless, Damn it, Evelyn Hale. You are a crazy woman. He lunged forward, lifted her clean off her feet, threw her over his shoulder. Noah, she yelped, put me down. No, he growled, trudging back toward the doors with her kicking weakly. I am not letting you die in a blizzard. He kicked the doors open, warmth flooding around them. He didn't set her down until they were safely inside. Her legs wobbled. Her clothes dripped onto the marble. Her teeth chattered violently. But Noah didn't let go of her waist. Not this time. You meant it? He asked softly, searching her face. You love me? She nodded, tears warm again. Yes, I love you. I don't want you to leave. I can't lose you. Noah exhaled, breaking, healing, unraveling all at once. Okay, he whispered. Then don't lose me. He threaded his fingers through hers. Come with me. He led her into the elevator and immediately wrapped his coat around her trembling shoulders. They rose in silence. When the doors opened onto the executive floor, it was dim and quiet, lit only by warm emergency lights casting long golden shadows. Her office felt different now, softer, private, intimate. You need to get out of those wet clothes, Noah murmured. He retrieved towels from her bathroom and returned to find her standing exactly where he left her. Shivering, breath unsteady, eyes locked on him. Something inside him snapped open. No more freezing, he muttered. He peeled off her soaked shirt gently, reverently, draping the warm towel around her bare shoulders. His hands ran down her arms, warming her, grounding her. Evelyn swallowed hard. Noah. His gaze lifted to hers, burning and soft. Say it again, he whispered. I need to hear it. Her heart trembled. I love you, she breathed, and I'm done pretending I don't. His breath hitched, raw, unrestrained. He cupped her jaw, foreheads pressing together. Good, he whispered, voice shaking. Because I'm in love with you, completely. Her knees buckled. He caught her instantly, pulling her close. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, their world narrowed to breath and warmth and truth. He brushed her cheek with his thumb. Evelyn, he murmured, tell me to stop and I will. She shook her head. No more stopping. He kissed her, slow, deep, reverent, a kiss that tasted like surrender, like everything they had been denying for far too long. She pulled him closer, fingers sliding into his hair. His breath caught against her mouth. He lifted her onto her desk, the one he had stood beside 1,000 times during her reign. Tonight it held something entirely different. No urgency, no fear, no walls, no distance, just them, finally letting go, and for the first time in her life. Evelyn Hale fell, and Noah Reyes was right there to catch her. The end. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more love stories, and see you next week for a new one.